get started. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for another Microsoft User Group Utah and Cloud Talk webinar. And Ragnar, thanks a lot for joining today.
You're welcome. That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
I think it's an 8 or 9 hour difference. So I know
in Germany. Yeah.
Yep. And so Ragnar's going to be talking today, Highway to Teams, hyperspeed content migrations to Microsoft Teams based on Quest 5 pillar of migrations best practices. And I'll let Ragnar, maybe you give a little more of an introduction. I'll say that we almost overlapped in our time with methodologies. Of course, methodologies was acquired by Quest, but Ragnar is the EMEA channel account manager and one of the fastest leaving Microsoft to MVP. What was it, a whole day before you became an MVP?
Yeah, that's Microsoft. I think at 12 o'clock we come on a few hours later. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's for those that know, usually it's like a year of community effort. But Ragnar was already like, besides his role at Microsoft, was very heavily involved in the community, and so it was cool to see that happen and not make you wait a whole year after you left. So, but anyway, well, welcome. Thanks for taking your time to talk to the user group. Of course, this is being recorded. And if you have questions, use the chat. I'll be monitoring this, and I'll interrupt Ragnar's presentation. We're going about an hour.
Yes, please.
If it takes a little bit longer, that's fine. But feel free to ask questions, interact. And with that, Ragnar, I'm going to turn off my video and hand over the reins to you.
Super. Thank you very much. Christian, could you please confirm that everybody can, or that you can see my desktop, my slides here?
Not currently, but why don't you turn off your video and share your screen?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, because that's something, because I'm not the best Zoom user on this planet. So let me see if this works. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, fine. So today it's all about the highway to, not hell, to Teams. I'm going to talk a little bit deeper around the 5 pillars around migration best practices for Teams migration. And hyperspeed does not only mean to do everything very, very fast and quick and rapidly from the migration tool side, but I've also talked about different phases in the project, which is not only for the technology, but also where human beings and human resources are needed to remove pitfalls and blockers and so on. So it's a nice combination actually of human resources, project management, approaches, methodologies, and then also tools from Quest, which I'm going to show you live here. Before I'm going to dive deeper into the phases and the migration approaches, I'm going to share a little bit about me. I'm, as Christian already mentioned, I'm an MVP, and MVP means I'm really passionate around sharing knowledge around a community and connecting with other specialists and people around Microsoft 365, and especially SharePoint, Yammer, and Teams are my favorite topics. I'm blogging at ragnarhire.de around this topic, and then I'm also blogging a lot around traveling, headsets, and technical gadgets. And I'm very passionate for traveling also to Utah. And here you can see my 3 kids at Monument Valley, which was one of the most beautiful holidays I've ever done. And you can follow me here on Twitter, RagnarH, or at vol_e. And vol is the abbreviation for working out loud, because I have founded the community in Germany for this way of working, which is currently transforming the whole German enterprise customers in new ways of reaching goals. So my hearts are beating really for traveling and for Microsoft topics and also for working out loud. And I'm having a podcast since 1 week. I'm super proud. So if you want, you can follow me at Ragnar 365 and Nuggets, available on all large podcast formats. And I'm sharing short nuggets around 5 to 7 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. That's about me. I've got only 2 slides around my company, short facts and figures. Quest is not longer part of Dell. We have, there was an exit 3 years ago. We make around $1 billion every year. Revenue around 4,000 employees, and we are a worldwide company. I'm based in the German area around Frankfurt, and covering the partners in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Netherlands, Belgium. And we are, so for the partners of you, we are co-sell a partner, and we have 22 co-sell solutions in the co-sell catalog. So Microsoft is very passionate around co-selling, and here we are strongly committed. We have 6 pillars in products around database management, database migration, data protection, identity management, and I'm part of the business unit called platform management, where we want to migrate literally everything into the modern workplace, away from competitors from Microsoft, away from legacy systems like legacy file shares and legacy SharePoint, into the modern workplace, into Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange Online, and so on. And so it's all about modernization of infrastructure and moving into the cloud. And this topic, or this presentation, is to give you a deeper insight around the migration phases, because I want to prevent kind of idea that migration is only, you get a few tools or a PowerShell script and you just click on the start button and then the migration starts into the modern workplace. No. The most important thing is to plan a migration and do the migration, then manage everything and secure. And currently you see 4 different stages and 4 different pillars. And the number 5 is going to be repeat everything, iterate, and go back to plan. So, it's actually like a tunnel. When the migration is finished, there is a new migration, like the light and the tunnel. So let's start with the first pillar, which is obviously the planning phase. The planning phase is one of the longest phases, actually, because it really helps to reduce the amount of content, and that is going to increase the migration speed. So as I said, the migration speed is not only the job of the tool, which you can purchase or get for free from Microsoft. The planning phase is also super important to use it, and I will show you why. Before I talk about how to shorten things by removing content, I'm going to give you a little bit more insights about the different kind of migration approaches. So, who has heard of a migration approach called Big Bang? Here, with Big Bang, the advantages: it's a very easy kind of migration. Trading is easy. The transition is minimal, but there are higher risks, and also you can only do limited kind of migration scenarios. And everybody needs to be available at this very special weekend when the migration is done, because at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock on Monday morning, everything has to be finished. So there's a high risk that you won't make it in your timeline. Another kind of migration could be the sequential one. Less risk, but the thing is, large environment, you have alternatives. Is the sequential one the only one? But it's definitely a more complex one, and the change management process is far more difficult. But many companies choose the sequential approach. Another one is the manual one. Main benefits: no license cost. You do everything manual, but it's labor intensive. So if you don't want to buy the migration tools, you need human resources. It's labor intensive, and you lose metadata. You only can do it with limited kind of content. Fast forward approach. The advantages would be you can reduce the amount of content, but it's actually, you cut away a lot of things. You move a SharePoint on-premise site maybe into Teams, but you remove all the other content like pages and wikis and templates. You just migrate the pure document. So you just use just a subset of the SharePoint power, and then just migrate the subset into Teams. Same for Google. If you move from Google into Teams, it's the same. You just take the documents and lose everything else. Incremental approach is also very interesting. It's, for change management point of view, there is less disruption for end users. It reduces the complexity, but you definitely need a tool. So incremental is not possible without tools, and the tools can always sync from the source to the tenant. If people and the end users are still working on the source, it's going to be synced with a tool to the target. But it takes longer, and it's, yeah, so you have to see if you have a very strict deadline and then decide if you go for incremental or not. Last but not least, there is another approach which I'm going to dig deeper here. It's around tenant-to-tenant migration, and here we have one approach. We migrate from one tenant to the other tenant, like, you know, from, I don't know, from just from one single to the other one. And the other approach would be to create a hybrid scenario with AD on-prem, AD in Azure, AD, and so on. So because the customer wants to stay hybrid for a longer term. And then the other thing would be, you know, you've got multiple tenants, like you've got, I don't know, I've got customers who have 18 tenants and they want to consolidate and modernize 18 tenants into one single tenant. So it's all about tidying up the tenants and moving everything into one single tenant. That's also one scenario what we see. Yeah, especially because a lot of, you know, test and demo tenants are created. And these topics are very important for merger and acquisition topics. Do you have questions until now regarding this kind of scenarios? Because here, when you pick one of these 7 scenarios, you can really save time. And this is one of the first major parts of going into a hyperspeed migration. But if you want to have a very fast migration, you have some other disadvantages, which I'm just showing you. So it's always thinking if you want to go on speed or handle the risks. But nevertheless, one thing is always important compared to other kind of projects. We have now an upside down team planning. And I've done this photo in one of my favorite state parks in my region. House is on the is upside down, and this means in these migration projects you have to spend 80% of the resources in change management, usage, adoption, and training, and only 20% in tools. And guess what IT thinks? IT usually thinks, okay, we are investing 80% in the migration tools and then 20 in the team. No, it's the other way around. And here my strong recommendation is to use a certification from Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Service Adoption Specialist. It's a free certificate. And if you want to have it printed out, like I did it, it's 75 or 80 bucks, quite cheap. And you get a very deep knowledge around change management, ProSci, AdCalm, and learn more about Microsoft Teams adoption best practices. So that's a very important thing to make progress. And if you start a migration project, it's super relevant to define KPIs and targets. So, you know, what is your budget? How can you stay on budget? What's your time frame, your milestones? What is actually, did you do an assessment on the actual content? Do you have good relationships with vendors who produce the migration tools? You have an overview, a very precise overview around the size of content, the complexity of content, the complexity of permissions. So these are things what you definitely have to, or you have to have workshops before you can start any kind of migration or choose a migration tool. Then you do nice project planning, pick up your project, or use Planner or other tools to define the milestones. So classical project management. And as I said, communication, change management, you need to have an end user communication plan because everybody wants to see when do I get Exchange, when do I get SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, what are the pros and cons, why should I use Teams compared to Yammer, what are the benefits of using Teams versus email. So people need to understand when can they work with these tools, what's the purpose, what's in for them, and get them into a rhythm to repeat their new habits, repeat their new actions, and not only for a few days, but also for many weeks and months, and to get really into a stable way of working with these brand new tools. And when this is communicated, the end user also needs to be part of a kind of cleaning work, where you definitely talk about, what is which content should be migrated. Do I have rules around cleaning? Which content is duplicated, which content is old-fashioned and redundant, which content is questionable and trivial, and so on. How do I know when the migration would be complete at the end of the migration? And therefore you need workshops, because usually if you only ask one IT guy, they don't know it. And in the migration tool later on, you can configure this migration tool in many different ways, but you need to have these workshops, otherwise you don't know how to configure the migration tool. And this is going to save a lot of data. And this means if you save a lot of data because you clean the system, that means you pay less money to the migration companies like Quest. So I think that's the best advice which I can give you for today. Take care about cleaning up. You pay less to the vendors, and the migration will be definitely faster.
Hey, Ragnar.
Please.
This is one of those. I completely agree with that point. It's I always would tell customers like look, migration is that opportunity to go in there and really review. Like it's like the difference between a mover showing up at your house and filling the boxes with dirty dishes that are still in the sink. Do you really want to move them like that, or move all that? Yeah. Load up your garbage that is in your recycle bin. Or do you want to take the opportunity to go in and figure out, hey, here's what actually needs to be moved, and decrease the time it takes to migrate and decrease the complexity of that. Make your life easier.
Otherwise, you wouldn't feel well at home, because you say, okay, listen, I'm going to move to a new house, the shiny new place, the shiny new modern workplace, intelligent workplace. And then you say, oh my God, the old trash is back. And you say, okay, that's now disappointing.
Yep.
So it's really like moving to a brand new flat, brand new house, the same thing, same feeling. And here you definitely need to invest time to define what is actually duplicated content. What is it? What happens if the content would be moved? What happens when it would not be moved? So what are the risks and implications and so on? So because if I ask the customer, how do you define what is duplicated content, they have no idea. So you definitely need to have workshops, because otherwise you have no definition. These workshops should be done with IT, marketing, sales, R&D, HR, finance. So don't ask only one guy or one department. Do a cross department interview, and then the biggest benefit is the departments feel participated. They say, oh yeah, we are great. We are part of a journey into the modern workplace. So we are onboarded. So we are part of it. They ask us, and this is going to decrease the resistance, because they are part of this process. Very important. Because as you were just mentioning, Christian, there are different room sizes. So you can move into teams from Box or Dropbox, from SharePoint on-premises, from file shares, from Lotus Notes or whatever. But sometimes you've got more rooms in teams, and you've got new features, and you need a workshop. Hey, how do I use these new features? How do I use the new space? But it could also be that you have the same footprint. Like, okay, in my old system, I had the same kind of quota storage like in Teams now. So but I've got the same footprint, the same space, but brand new features. And then you need to create workshops that the users know how to use Teams, because they know maybe the chat systems and the file parts, but they've never used video conferences or whatever, or Power BI integration. So here you also need workshops, otherwise they wouldn't use the new tools. And Microsoft is super keen on pushing these new advanced workloads into Teams, like the Power Platform and so on, Power BI, phone systems, conferencing and so on, the advanced stuff. So that's very important to address it. And then the other case would be you've got moving into teams and you've got a less footprint, you've got less space by new features. This also needs a discussion. So there is many room for workshops, and then finally, with all these workshops, you are going to write down information strategy, and also talk, with COOs and around big picture. Does my information strategy aligns with acquisitions, what we're currently planning? Is it aligned with changes in leaderships? Are we maybe reorganizing the whole company? Because if you don't ask this question, you are creating a beautiful strategy which is going to be outdated in a few weeks or months because you didn't ask all these questions. And then you can immediately start from the beginning before you have kicked off the migration. So don't look at migration only from the IT point of view. Really focus on the larger organization changes which can happen. Red flags would be you're going to start a migration, you have no budget, no sponsor, you didn't check, you didn't do a content assessment, you didn't do risk assessment, no user engagement, no strategy, and so on, no tools, just on your own, everything manually. And for content assessments, we are working very closely with a company called Ragnar, and they are very strong in making SharePoint content assessment and finding all the difficulties and pitfalls and challenges in your migration from SharePoint to SharePoint Online or to Teams.
Hey Ragnar, just on that point too, it's and of course Ragnar and the team have been they've participated in this stuff and sponsored a bunch of the Utah events and stuff. I would say that again, my experience working in the migration software space is that not identifying customizations and integrations is the #1 cause of failure of your migration. Whether you've scripted it out or you're using a third-party tool, it's those unknowns. And so to use something like Ragnar to be able to go in and any solution that has that pre-migration analysis that can identify those customizations, identify anything out of the norm of what should be there, is going to dramatically improve your success rate of migration.
It's so important because these tools are asking dozens of questions which you would never think about. So these questions are completely unknown and give you a very precise picture about what you have to do before you can kick the migration start button. And then this is very important for the estimation, because it can be that your stakeholder estimates that the migration starts next Monday, and you run a migration tool from Ragnar or from others, and then you see, oh my God, there is still so much work, and the migration has a delay of 2 or 3 weeks, because applications have to be recoded and so on, and workflows have to be tuned and so on. And this is all about estimation handling, because if you don't do it, you will run into errors, you will run into issues, you will run into disappointments. So it's better to have the assessment beforehand, and then you can do the estimation management with your stakeholder, and not, as I said, running into issues and get higher unsatisfaction. So benchmarks is test every single major source type. Even if you just migrate to Teams and not to complex thing like SharePoint Online, check the migration source, check the consistency of data. Don't only work with dummy data, also you work with real data, because there's a big difference of real data and just play dummy data and so on. And don't do only tests with the IT dummy data, ask marketing, sales, HR, finance for their data and so on. And don't assume that every content is the same, because sometimes, the devil is in the detail, and you just write, PDFs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then you run into issues with, some Photoshopped documents or CAD documents or OneNotes or whatever. So really try to get as much as you can of data types. Then at the end of this planning phase, there's a checklist, and here I'm going to share all the slides with you, so you don't need to write anything down. All the slides will be given to you. And then you're actually ready. And then ready means kick off the migration. And on the market, there are many different tools, beautiful vendors. They all have great tools. And I get a lot of times the question, why should I use Quest? There are so many other great tools on the market. And I'm working, I've got very good friends in the other companies. They do a great job. But the Quest is the only one which got 40 different checks from Gartner. So there's the workload, emails, files in SharePoint, all the different migration functions. And Quest is the only one who has got 40 checks. So the other guys have great products, but if you want to have a complete offering, then we're the only one on the market. And we are the only one because we have so many tools. But if you have a lot of tools like Quest, it's always the disadvantage that you have got too many tools, and customers come to us and say, listen, Quest, I don't know where to start and which tool should I use. And therefore, we have now created an Azure-based solution. It's called Quest on Demand, and this covers the best of our 50, 70 tools into one single Azure solution with modules called migration, recovery, backup, auditing and compliance, group management of 65 groups, license and security, distribution groups, and license management. And so it's like a Swiss knife, like a Swiss Army knife, fully running on Azure, in the US cloud, in Europe, in the government cloud in the US. And I'm going to focus here on the migration part, which can migrate Azure AD to Azure AD, SharePoint to online SharePoint, OneDrive to OneDrive, Exchange, and Teams to Teams. So that's what I'm going to show you here. And this tool is actually a migration tool, but every migration tool has a discovery phase where you start with the source and target. Look which teams are already existing, which teams are matching, and then you can start the migration. There's also a coexistence in case the migration takes longer. Then the source tenant and the target tenant can share the calendar, they can forward the emails, and they share the domain name, which means that literally on the first day or on the day 0 of a merger and acquisition, the new users who were acquired can write emails with a new company name, which is very, very good for to feel like a new company after the acquisition in the press release. And the tool offers project management, like dashboard monitoring, scheduling of migration jobs, a transparent view of tasks and errors and logs. And you can migrate also resources. And from here, I would like to jump directly into a demo. Let me see if you can see my screen right now. It should also be, should be the same screen. So yep. This tool, as I said, it's called Quest on Demand. And I'm going to, logged out. Give me a few seconds to go back. And then here I will show you in one single demo how to migrate from one team to the other team. That's the purpose here of this demo. Because Microsoft out of the box is not offering a migration from one tenant to the other tenant. Teams migration, so you need external tools. That's not possible with manual work. And what I've done here is, while it's loading, I'm going to show you what I've done. I have created a little group. It's called Microsoft User Group Utah. I've just uploaded a few pictures here from a family trip to Utah. This should look like familiar to you. Then some information here from the bot. The bot is talking about the calendar. I've uploaded a presentation, and the bot is answering. I've also uploaded here an animated GIF. And I've done an emoji, so a mix of files, conversations. And I've also embedded here a PowerPoint slide, and I've uploaded files. So PowerPoint is also here embedded. And now jumping back to my tenant. Here I can choose which organization I am. I'm going to pick the European one. And now going back into the migration module to show you how to migrate from one tenant to the other tenant. So here we have different symbols for different projects. So here I could start with an Azure AD migration, which would also include mail migration and OneDrive migration. I can have a second project phase called SharePoint Online to SharePoint Online. The third one with public folders, and the last one with Teams. And here I've already done one with Teams, and yeah, and I called it Microsoft User Group Utah. And here, when you look at the dashboard, you have got a little wizard guidance, because in the very best case, you don't need to read the documentation. It's just guiding you like a wizard through the whole process. And it starts with the discovery phase, the provisioning, and the migration phase. Then you have here an overview about the amount of teams which were migrated. You see the task, and here on the bottom, you see the error messages. So in the very first step, you will go into the discovery phase and say, okay, please run the discovery task now, or schedule and do it later. But no, I'm doing it now. And this will now see which teams are in my tenant. Do I have 5 teams, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 teams? This will do this job. And because of my time, I'm going to jump directly into my team. And here I've created one called Microsoft User Group Utah. And here the next step would be the provisioning phase. And here I get the question, if this team would already exist in the target, what should I do? Nothing? Merge to the existing team, or create a new team? And currently I'm saying, okay, please do nothing, and then run the job now. And now I'm merging from the source tenant to the target tenant directly. And here you can see that the job is running. And the same thing, I'm not going to wait here, because it's always boring to stare at these things. I will go to the last part and to the third part, where I'm going to click on migrate. And then I can choose if I want to also migrate tabs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint tabs. Next, run now, and then finish, and then it's gone. And then the migration is going to look like this. Here I would have the Microsoft User Group Utah. I would have my open channel, the private channel, and then the content is migrated. The pictures are migrated. The PowerPoint slides would be migrated, and the emojis would be migrated, and also the animated GIFs. So that's the current state. What we can do. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's currently not possible, but let me summarize it. So currently we can really focus on migrating whole teams. We can migrate on channels. We can migrate the permissions, the rights. We can migrate the conversations, the documents. We can migrate simple tabs like PowerPoint, Word, Excel. We are currently rolling out a new feature called merging and renaming tenants. So if you do naming convention workshops, then we can rename tenants now and merging into existence, and also migrating the users and the permissions here. And we can also talk about assigning the right license, but that's more for the other cases like OneDrive. So that sounds actually quite interesting. So starting really from the discovery phase to the provisioning phase, the migration phase, merging and renaming. So it sounds like a wonderful picture. One solution based on Azure, many workloads, Azure AD, OneDrive, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams. It's sending you alerts when something goes wrong. You've got full control. You get quest support. Many ISO audits are available and so on. So it's a beautiful story. Do we really live in this perfect world? Is now everything perfect? And I'm here to show you that that it's not everything perfect. We still have a lot of things which are not working. Number one would be, we are requesting the migration API from Microsoft. We are doing a lot of work currently on the client API, which is definitely not the fastest API on this planet. So there is currently no migration API for Teams available, and that is sometimes a challenge, especially for migrating the files. Then we have some issues around the impersonation. So when we migrate, you can see the migration user and not the user who is actually doing the repost. So the reposting, the thread owner is going to be shown on the second stage and not on the first stage. So there's a challenge on the impersonation, and also there is no API for stream, no API for flow. OneNote is difficult. So a lot of things, or Power BI, a lot of things that we would like to migrate, we currently can't due to missing APIs. So it's not a perfect world at the moment, and we have to compensate a few things which we are missing from Microsoft. And especially we are missing the migration API. But I've got some good news to share with you, because here we can use our existing tools from Quest, like Essentials for Office 365, which can migrate file shares or SharePoint on-premises into Teams, can migrate Box, Dropbox, Google Drive into Teams. And this migration tool from Quest will use the SharePoint API, which is the SharePoint, the fast migration API. And then the content will go directly from this legacy systems or from this Microsoft competitors, will go through an Azure pipeline directly into Teams. So with this additional methodologies tools, we can compensate the missing migration API on Teams. And that's very important, because otherwise we would stress the client API in Teams. We would penetrate it too heavily, and then we would run into throttling. You would need to open support tickets at Microsoft, which is not funny because you need to do it daily. And here we could use this additional tools and compensate it. So, which means from the sales, and the other benefits from these tools would be, with this SharePoint migration tools, you can also have advanced reporting. You can remap templates. You can correct links. You can migrate in Linux forms and Linux workflows, and reprocess failed items, and have better alerts and better version history and terms to management and so on, if you want to migrate to SharePoint. So also some nice features which are not available on the pure Azure solution. So pricing would be, we charge $10 per year for the basic migration, and then up to 15, 20. And then if you would really like to go into the larger one and would like to include Essentials, then it would be like $23 per user per year. List prices for end customers. And one thing which is important for me as a partner manager is that we are a partner first company. We are definitely not interested in offering large services here. So we have a strong customer support team worldwide, globally, 24/7. But the deployment and migration should be done by our partners. So every partner who's currently listening should definitely talk to us regarding this offering.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have any partners in Utah here?
Oh, haha. I would need to jump deeper here into my list, because I'm actually managing the Central European partners. So yeah, so please come back to me with these questions. Everybody who's listening, I'm going to share my email at the end of the slides. But I would need to open a few reports here, what I'm currently not doing here.
No worries, and we've got other people that are watching that are outside of the area, and
I'm happy to
a couple partners as well. So, yeah,
more than happy to have this conversation offline when I dig into my reports. So, last part of my presentation here is, when the migration is finished, you are going into the management part, and management meets. You have conversations and workshops around how it's actually Teams used. Do I need to restructure and reorganize content after the migration, or is everything already in perfect and fine place? So just think like you would migrate or you would move to a new house, a new apartment, and it's also time to unbox the boxes and to put them into the wardrobe and into the cupboards and so on, and to do all this work. Here it's the same. And please look, are the users are reverting to old behaviors? Are they maybe moving away from Teams and going back to emails and attaching things to emails? So here the recommendation would be proactive monitoring and see if the users are still using Teams and use adoption matrix here, and Microsoft is offering a lot of reports. Also the other players on the market have great tools around Teams adoptions. Christian, you're working closely with tyGraph. There's also Swoop and Cardiolog and other players who have great tools. So here there's definitely a risk that people would fall back into their old patterns and wouldn't use tools and wouldn't use Teams anymore like they should. And then for my European context, GDPR topics are relevant. You check if there's GDPR content in Teams and how you should handle this regarding retention and unarchiving and deletion rules and guidelines from the regulators. So that's actually it. And here, if everything is finished, you might go back to the first step. So 5 pillars means pillar number 5, starting over again. Go back. And here the most important thing is if you go back to a new migration, you start from the beginning, collect feedback. Learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. Share what you learned. Maybe you want to use Teams again to share the learnings. Maybe you want to use Yammer. Maybe you want to make a podcast or a video or a LinkedIn post about your learnings and so on. So there's so much to learn around a migration. Capture it. Go to your next user group, to the next Ignite or wherever, but share the goodness and share the experiences around the migration. There's so much which others can learn, and also give the feedback back to your organization to make the migration the next time better, smoother, or faster, happier, or whatever. It's so important. And that's actually the essence. And now we have like really 50 minutes of questions. I'm happy to answer all your questions. You can reach me on ragnar@quest.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, also other channels. Yeah.
And Ragnar, we'll give people a minute if they've got any questions. I wanted to ask, given that, there's so much, you can't replace the planning, the activities, a lot of what you've gone through with just a tool. It's like there is no magical tool that you can plug in and it'll just kind of do all these pieces. Where do you see your customers, your experience, where do people struggle the most with their planning?
I see a lot of challenges around content assessment to really capture the size, because when we have customer conversations, we usually ask customers around the sizing, how many gigabytes and terabytes do you have? They say, listen, we have no idea. They have no idea how to capture all the content. Then we share some PowerShell scripts and so on, how to capture it. But it starts actually here. The most difficult thing is other questions around content classification. Which content should go, or which content should stay on premises, which content needs to go to OneDrive, which content should go to SharePoint, Teams, and so on. Customers have actually no idea about the content classification and about the law and legal regulations where content should be stored. And they tend to bring everything into the cloud, or they say, okay, we cannot go to the cloud. Everything should stay on premise. So that's a very difficult topic here.
And then, and you mentioned, we talked about briefly about like Rencore and their tool and other solutions that do kind of the pre-migration analysis. Is that becoming more common? Are organizations doing a better job of doing that pre-migration analysis as an activity, or are you still seeing that as a problem that you're constantly having to preach about?
Ragnar is actually a wonderful company, but they cannot really scale globally. So if somebody here from the audience is interested to get into contact with Ragnar and to use their solutions and offer services and consulting around their solutions, they would be more than happy, because currently they are more or less Germany based, and they don't have a global presence, but they would like to work on a global level. So here they definitely need partners. Yeah, that's for sure.
But do you see customers? Are they spending more? Are they being more thoughtful around their pre-migration planning, or is that still a pretty wide gap?
I would say it's still a gap here. So I don't see a lot of progress here. So, but to be very honest, I'm not so deeply involved into the conversations with my US account teams, but I haven't heard really that there is a progress regarding the content assessment phases and the content assessment maturities compared to what we've seen like 1 or 2 years ago. So I think it's still on the same level. But it's growing. But it's growing because in the past, we were just talking about moving file shares to SharePoint, or moving SharePoint on-premise to SharePoint Online. But now companies have so many different systems, and the complexity is increasing because now maybe they have Box or Dropbox approved, and Notes and SharePoint and file shares and maybe other tools. So
and the hybrid solutions. I know hybrid is. As Microsoft has admitted, Jeff Teeper and others repeatedly that they were surprised by how strong the hybrid space has remained.
Yeah, and we at Quest, we do customer advisory boards every year, and in these boards we always ask our largest enterprise customers on the DAX, we like the Dow Jones, what's your plan? How many years do you want to stay hybrid? Like 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years? And the most is like 5 or 10 years. So there are no immediate plans here from these large enterprise customers to really move fully into the cloud. They really want to stay hybrid on a longer term.
Yeah, well, as I interview other MVPs, that seems to be that theme. I always try to be careful to not kind of skew my impression based off the handful of people that I talk to about the topic, but it's fairly consistent as I talk with people that are still heavily involved in building out SharePoint environments and doing migrations and stuff as service providers, that they're seeing strong hybrid, and to your point, that they have all of these other cloud-based tools, solutions as well. So, well, Ragnar, I know we're at the end of this process. Really want to again thank you for your time today, and just a reminder to everybody out there. So, if I can, Ragnar, you're happy to share your slides?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
All right, so I'll have a blog post with links to Ragnar's contact information and to his slides, and should have this recording up later today. But Ragnar, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Everybody have a great day, and hopefully I'm going to be back in Utah as soon as possible.
Hope to see you too. Hey, you're welcome in 2 weeks, our Microsoft 365 Friday, if you want to make that little flight, that short flight, little jump.
But first, I will travel to Dallas in 3 weeks, and then I will go to MVP Summit in Redmond in 2 months. So I'll be in the US many times this year. Yeah.
I'll see you in Seattle in 2 months.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
My side, Kristen.
Right.
Thanks for having me here, and bye to all the listeners now and later on demand.